freedom, man. That's what it's all about. You've got to groove on freedom, like the good book says.
Welcome. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. This show will discuss the topics of human consciousness, mind control, natural law, the occult, and all issues that affect the freedom of the people of Earth. What on Earth is Happening will endeavor to shine light upon the darkness of our world and to offer empowering solutions to the problems we face as humanity approaches its critical moment of choice. And now, here is your host, Mark Passio.
Welcome one and all, you're watching What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Government is slavery. And here on What on Earth is Happening, we are ending slavery one mind at a time. Welcome. Today is Sunday, September 29th, 2019. This is What on Earth is Happening, episode number 222. And we're coming at you live, streaming on whatonearthishappening.com/show. We are also simulcasting on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, as well as Vimeo Live. So today's show is going to be the last What on Earth is Happening show before a extended hiatus that I'm taking to complete the Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law documentary. So I felt like I wanted to come back on air and tell people about projects that I have planned for the future, why I'm taking this hiatus, and also to kind of take inventory and do a show about where human consciousness is at toward the end of the year 2019. So, this is how we started the video format of the show. The first show in the new video format that we did back in January was Where is Humanity at in Consciousness? Well, I'm calling this show, and we could switch over to the laptop. I'm calling this show Human Consciousness Checkpoint Late 2019 and the Future of What on Earth is Happening. So that's what the topic's going to be on today. And I'm going to really start with, what I've been doing and what I will be doing, things that we have planned for the future. And then I'm going to go into some social experiment results that we did as part of the gathering of data for the documentary, for the natural law documentary that we're working on. First of all, I was very busy with other commitments, namely for the Anarchadelphia conference, which I want to basically state that I am going to deliberately withhold my review of the Anarchadelphia 2019 conference for specific reasons, and I'm not going to say anything else about that right now. At some point, I will do a full review of the conference, but not right now. Aside from that, that took up a lot of my time where I was not able to personally work on the editing and production of the documentary. Now I want to really dedicate almost all of my time to that because it's so important. Because first of all, seeing how the documentary is coming out for those who did see the sneak preview, the little rough cut that we showed, a preliminary cut, I was so highly impressed with it thus far. I know that this is going to really help humanity. It's going to help people that don't already understand natural law to get it. And I want to really get in there and, add some of my aesthetics and really fine tune things and get it up to the point where we can feel 100% that this is ready for prime time, ready for mainstream, and get it out there to the public. Okay, it's going to hit the gifts area of What on Earth is Happening, hopefully by the beginning of the year. I mean, if I'm being very, very optimistic, I'd like to get it out by Christmas. I don't know whether that will happen, but that's our projected goal, optimistically. I feel a little bit better that maybe by early next year we can get it out, and this will, end my commitment of time to that project. But I want to talk about what's going to be required, because we're not where we need to be as far as in-house here at What on Earth is Happening. And I'm kind of going to do things in the reverse order. The topic of the show today is Human Consciousness Checkpoint, late 2019, and the future of What on Earth is Happening. I'm going to talk about the future of What on Earth is Happening first. Then the duration of the show is going to be about where humanity is at and why I think it's still where it's at. And then I'm going to take calls if time permits. If not, it'll just be all information and data for this particular show. If there's some time left, we'll go to your calls toward the third hour of the show in Discord. So, first thing I want to say is we are working with a new camera here today at What on Earth is Happening. I want to thank a wonderful donor to What on Earth is Happening who dedicated a beautiful 4K camcorder that is just top notch, top of the line, has some of the latest technology and features in it. And, that donor is so appreciated. I'm going to try to put together a care package for them because they went above and beyond made a donation that was absolutely from the heart. And, I just want to say also to everybody who has donated to What on Earth is Happening in any way, heartfelt thanks goes out to you, whether you donated, in the form of PayPal or cryptocurrency or Patreon, if you're a Patreon donor, or if you donated in the form of making equipment donations, which, as I've always said, I love the equipment donations because it takes any middleman out of the equation. You know exactly what your donation is going toward. And we just had a wonderful donor just step forward and make a donation for a brand new camera. We're probably going to even add a third view with one of the other older cameras that we started the project with, the video project with, when we come back. So, we'll set that up in our streaming document and have an even third view. Maybe we'll show you a little bit of what the studio looks like or what our setup looks like a wider angle view or something to that effect. We'll figure it out. But if we go back to the slides, I want to just show people. Well, first of all, I want to just tell people, yes, there will. This is going to be basically the title card that we're going to have up in the streaming section of the show. We will return soon. I'm not going to give an exact date, but I'm going to just make a general projection that it will be early next year, hopefully early January. Maybe right around the 1 year mark that we went to the video format, which was January 20th. Hopefully, by the beginning of the year, if things work out with how we're producing the documentary and it comes out exactly as planned, or it goes even smoother than planned, hopefully earlier than that, but we'll see how it goes. So that's the first announcement that I want to make, is that there will be an extended hiatus of the show until we really hammer down this documentary into its completed form, into something that we know we want to get out there to the public and we're super proud of. It's coming along wonderfully so far. I want to thank all of the editors that worked on the project, and Leah, my assistant Leah, for their tireless efforts in producing it thus far, in getting it up to where it is now in their editing and production. So I'm going to now step in as producer and executive producer and director of the project, and really move it into its final phase and try to get it into its completed form, with assistance from Leah, other people, and of course whatever editors. Now here's the problem. We really do not have an editor for the project at this point. Those who were helping to edit it were at the point where they are either stepping away from that on the volunteer basis that they were on, and or the money that is going to be required for paying an editor is not present. It is not in the budget of this project of What on Earth is Happening. So the first thing I want to announce today is we desperately need two things. We need an editor to complete the documentary. I may have to step forward and do the editing of the project. And if that's the case, it's a new platform I'm going to have to learn. I'm more familiar with Final Cut Pro and Premiere. We're editing this on DaVinci Resolve, which is a nice video editing platform, but I'm not very familiar with it. So it would take a learning curve, or at least a transitional curve, to move from one editing system to another, an editing system that I'm familiar with to one that I am not, if I have to move to that role. Other work would essentially stop here at What on Earth is Happening if I have to do that. A lot of people don't understand how much work does stop when I have to troubleshoot. We're going to talk about that for a moment. So, a lot of what I'm realizing talking to people who say that they want to do the great work is they do not understand the actual real technical skill set and involvement and entire skill sets and workflows that have to go into production for any aspect of doing this work. They really believe that they're going to just encounter a stranger on the street, talk to them for a little while, and their mindset is magically going to be somehow transformed, or they're going to be somehow inspired to look into the truth. And I'm sorry to say that the world doesn't work that way, ladies and gentlemen. You're extraordinarily naive if you think that it does. What you really need to do is put your work out publicly in some form of a decent aesthetic form for people to consider. And most people don't even know how to do that. They have no part of the technical skill sets on how to do that. We're going to talk about this in this episode of the show. This was actually the premise of my workshop recently called Teaching Natural Law. And I'm going to just talk briefly about, what the overarching theme was for that, because this fits into what I'm talking about here today as why more people are not doing the great work. But, people don't really understand what's involved. They think, all this just happens magically, or you press a button and it happens. And folks, this is hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of meticulous work. It is a regular job. I hear a lot of people saying bullshit like, well, you don't work a regular job. I work longer hours than a regular job most days, okay? You have no idea what the work is to do this. Zero, okay? Most people. The few people that do work like this do know what kind of work this involves. But the vast, overwhelming majority of people, you've done no part of it, and you have no idea what amount of work is involved, and you have no idea of the skill sets that are involved. Just, whether you take offense to that, then get as offended as you like, but that's the truth. Most people have zero clue. Okay, so what I want to explain to people today is how we're shorthanded, and we need to bring some new members on board the team to help us work on these projects, and hopefully there will be compensation involved. It may very well have to be on a volunteer basis, possibly at first. We may have some funds at first. Funds may dry up. We don't know what the monetary situation is going to be, quite frankly. Because quite frankly, not that many people really, truly value this work, less than anyone thinks. And that's what it really comes down to, is people putting their resources where their mouth is at. They say they want freedom. They don't want to get involved in doing it themselves. They want to pay lip service to it, but they don't want to really back anything. Okay? And I'm putting the monies that I receive into this project. Okay? So we have some limited amounts of resources, and I've been putting those toward paying an editor that we had to bring on in an emergency capacity because of the ways that we were shorthanded leading up to the preliminary screening of the Natural Law documentary. And what we want to do is bring in some more donation money to pay for the editing process. So let me move forward and explain. This is what we're really talking about here. The documentary is called Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law. And again, up where it's at up to this point is wonderful. We are making great progress in building the timeline for this documentary. There are still issues that have to be worked out. There are some visuals that have to go in. Some have to come out and be replaced. There are audio things that have to be streamlined and worked out, okay? There is additional content that needs to be put in the timeline. There's a lot that still needs to be done. I'd say we're at about the 75% mark. You know, and as a lot of people say when it comes to the video editing process, the last 10% is 90% of the work. Okay, so it's getting there, but by no means is it near completion. It's close. Okay, it's almost getting to the point where we could say it's near completion, but I'd say we're at like the 75%, you know, to the home stretch mark. So what we need going forward is we need somebody that wants to come here. Now, see, first of all, when you say I need a video editor, tens of thousands of people from all over the world will say, oh, I know these skills. I might not even know that program, and they want to get involved. If you cannot come to Philadelphia, you cannot be considered for this project. Can you clean your ears right now and listen? Because most people hear what they want to hear, and they don't listen to what's being asked for. So, at the risk of totally insulting people and treating them like they have Down syndrome, can you clean out your ears and listen to what's being asked in the way of help so that you don't add noise to the signal of who we need to speak to when looking for people with these skill sets and with the criteria that we are asking for? And the first and prime criteria is before you even have the skill sets we are looking for, you have to be here in person. Do you understand what that means? That means you cannot do this from your own home. You cannot do this from where you are at. You must come to our offices in Philadelphia and work here in person. You need to sit with us in the same room and sit down at the editing machine while we are sitting behind you looking at the same screen or screens and working in the same room with the nonlinear editing program. Do you understand? Okay? I'm sorry that I need to say it like that, because here's what happens. When we say we need someone in person, immediately we get 100 people from all over the world, and then we have to weed through the people and say who's actually in Philadelphia. If you are not from the Philadelphia area and or cannot travel multiple days a week to the Philadelphia area, this project is going to be a multiple day a week project until we get it finished. Okay? We haven't set up the exact time frame. Will it be Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday? Will it be Monday through Friday? I don't know. Will it be weekends? We'll figure that out with whoever can work with us that has the skill set and is local. But one thing that has to be first and foremost understood, you must come here in person in Philadelphia. Okay? If you cannot do that, do not respond for our call for help when I put the next email address on the screen. Okay, do not respond to that email address unless you can be here in person. So here's what we need. Okay, let's move back to the presentation slides. Thank you. Here is what we need, folks. First of all, we don't have a budget for this project right now. So I am asking, we do need donations to come in specifically for the purpose of finishing the Science of Natural Law documentary. I do not have a budget to pay a video editor at this point. Okay? The monies that come in for What on Earth is Happening right now are helping me to survive, pay my rent, pay my bills, my utility bills, eat, and procure equipment that I require and other services that are required to do this. I do not have enough of a budget. If I start paying an editor right now out of just the very limited funds that I have for What on Earth is Happening, I will not have money to live at the place where I live right now and produce anything. So we have to somehow procure a budget to potentially pay a video editor to finish this project. Okay? So we are asking first and foremost, if you can, and I don't ask anybody to put themselves out, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first and foremost state that. A lot of people think like I'm asking people who are somehow poor to like go and make donations to this cause. I am not asking that, would never ask any such thing. If you need your resources for what you need to secure a way of life for yourself and you have no more than that, then do not donate to me. I would never ask anyone to do that. If you have resources in some abundance that you are in a position to donate and contribute to this cause, to finish this documentary, then please do. And the website address to do that is whatonearthishappening.com/donate. We accept donations to this cause in 11 different ways. You could donate via PayPal, Patreon, many different forms of cryptocurrency, check, or money order. And now in this case, equipment donations don't really account for this. We have the equipment that we require to finish this editing project. Okay, I have a pretty decent Core i7 mini tower that I built. It's got solid state drives in it. You know, we have a great 8 gigabyte video card in there. You know, it's got all the, it's got like 16 gigabytes of RAM in there. We have like all the, I don't know whether it's 16 or 32, it might be 32 gigs in that machine. I think it's 32. Anyway, we have all the specs that we need in a modern video editing workstation to like get this project done. So that's not equipment's not an issue. We need an editor to come and sit with us and say, okay, we need this footage in here. We need to duck down this audio here. We need to, put this image in here. We need somebody in the room that we can work with. We can't go back and forth, rendering things and then, making comments or sending emails. It doesn't work like that, folks. An editor has to sit in the room with the production team, period, the end. So once again, the first criteria is you have to be local to the Philadelphia area. You have to be very experienced, I would say at least high level intermediate to expert level with the nonlinear video editing program called DaVinci Resolve by Blackmagic Studios. The production company that makes this software is called Blackmagic Studio. They're the developers, and the program is called DaVinci Resolve. It's a very good nonlinear editing piece of software that is cross-platform. We're running it for this project on a Windows 10 workstation. Okay? Yes, it can be taken to other, workstations, but we have it all set up in a modern Windows 10 workstation. Okay? So that is what you will be editing on. That is the tools. Those are the tool sets you will be using as an editor. The editor must be local to Philadelphia and be able to travel to the city of Philadelphia to work with us in person multiple days a week minimum. Okay, multiple days a week minimum. This isn't a 1 day a week or a couple day a week job. We need somebody to come here multiple days a week and hammer this out with us. This is going to be all I'm hopefully going to be doing for the next 3 months until this is in its completed form. And let me tell you something, folks. When you do see the completed form, you're going to be impressed. It's awesome. It's well on its way, and it's going to be even more awesome when it's finished. Okay? And I think I definitively know this is so going to make an impact when it hits. It's going to make an impact out there in humanity. Because rather than sit through a 9.5-hour lecture on the topic of natural law, people are going to see a beautifully polished video documentary with great audio, great video, great transitions, a great script, great narration. Okay, and it's going to be a highly polished, around 1 hour, maybe a little bit longer than 1 hour documentary that most people will sit through and watch when we pique their interest on, what is this all about? What is this thing that he's calling natural law? So I really think this can make a huge impact out there in ways that other media has not, especially when it comes to natural law. So if you meet these criteria, if you have experience with Blackmagic Design's program called DaVinci Resolve, okay, and you are local to Philadelphia and you can come here multiple days a week in person to work on this project with us, Please contact my assistant, Leah Boone, who will be fielding these requests. Okay, I and her will be filling them, but I want you to send them to her email address, which is Leah, L-E-I-H-A, at whatonearthishappening.com. Once again, Leah, spelled L-E-I-H-A, at whatonearthishappening.com. Send requests if you want to work with us on this project. You're local to Philadelphia. You can be here multiple days a week. There will be compensation depending on what we can bring in as far as a budget through donations. This whole show and project, ladies and gentlemen, has always been donation funded, and it always will be. I will never take sponsors that want to control content. The viewers, the listeners have always, through their donations, funded this project. I started it right out of my own pocket. I started it with no donations, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't even accept donations at first. And now I know that if I want to take the production qualities further, and if I want to reach more people, we need donations that come in that we put that, yes, okay, everyone hates the monetary system. We all understand that we need to move to a level of consciousness that we understand we're a human family and not need a monetary system. The consciousness of Earth is not at that point. That's the reality of our situation. So we need to take in resources for the things that we need. This is just common sense. This is just normal everyday activity. My rent is not free. My utility bills are not free. The food that I require on a daily basis is not free. The cameras that we use, the computers that we use, it'll be wonderful if things move in that direction in consciousness and we could, have the resources that we need as one family. Obviously, that's the goal. And that isn't communism. That's called reaching a higher level of consciousness and doing away with control systems, of which the entire monetary system is most certainly one of them. I talk about communism constantly here and how that's a totalitarian control system that we should not be trying to aspire to or moving toward. Socialism as well. These are evils of the world, all of them. But the monetary system is just another control system at some level. The whole point is unfortunately, we are still living in a world that uses it. And things are not free that are required to get this message out. That's the goal. I don't put this first. Money never comes first here. Okay? I think people should be honorable and do what they say they're going to do when they make commitments or agreements when it comes to money. I think that people should use money to advance the work. That should not be the goal. That should not be the purpose or the motivating factor. It should be to advance the great work of the understanding of natural law and the ending of human slavery. That is what I use those lower level resources to fuel the goal of moving us toward a society that stops embracing and condoning slavery and ultimately toward ending it. And that's what this documentary is ultimately all about. However, most people who have these skill sets are not willing to volunteer them for free. This is just a fact of the matter, reality of our world. That's why we are going to announce this fundraiser, okay, at whatonearthishappening.com/donate for the completion of the Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law documentary film. And we need additional editor or editors. We might take on one or two, okay? So this is what we require at this point. Please, whatever you do, okay, two things. Don't put yourself out. Number one, listen to what I am saying. If you don't have resources to contribute that are above what you require for your living, do not volunteer. Do not put yourself out. I have never and will never ask anyone to do that. That's number one. If you can volunteer and you have additional resources that you can contribute to this project, then please go to that address, whatonearthishappening.com/donate, and volunteer and contribute monetary resources. If you have editing skills and you are local to Philadelphia, please respond to the email address, leah@whatonearthishappening.com. Please, number two, if you are not local to Philadelphia, do not respond to that call for help. You will be hurting us If you are not local to Philadelphia and you respond to us, you are hurting the cause of completing the documentary. I don't know how else I can put that. If you are not local to Philadelphia and you respond to this call for help, you are hurting us because you are forcing us to go through all of the noise that will be added to the signal that is the reply for help. And we will have to weed through all these emails that say, oh, I want to help, but I'm not local. Please don't make us have to do that. I'm begging you. Only respond if you're local to Philadelphia and you really have the skills to do this. Okay? Be an adult about it. All right? So thank you to anyone who can contribute in those two forms to the completion of the documentary, the forthcoming documentary called Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law. We are well on our way, folks. Folks, this is looking awesome so far. I mean, this is going to be killer. That's the only way that I can put it. When you do finally see it, okay? It is going to come out in the gifts area first. We'll put it up there for a few months to make some resources for the What on Earth is Happening project. And then always, as with every other video, it hits the gift store for a little bit of time, and then it goes for free. It goes out to the world for free on other platforms, always, okay? So this will eventually be out there for free. We will continue to put it out there as one of the gift items, but it will be exclusively on the gift area of What on Earth is Happening. If you click the gifts tab or go to gifts.whatonearthishappening.com, exclusively when it first hits early next year, when it first is released, okay? After that, after a few months there, we will release it for free. So that's Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law documentary. So let's go back to the slides and let's talk about what's coming next, okay, with What on Earth is Happening. So here we go. Let's just put the slides back up. So it looks like we might be having an issue there. There we go. Sorry about that. So the next thing that I want to talk about is technical help. When we experience technical problems here at What on Earth is Happening, almost invariably, with very, very few exceptions, the resolution of technical problems falls to me personally. And, I am the most qualified person that I know to deal with those problems because I used to be a technical support technician. I worked at a company in Princeton, New Jersey that was one of the leading technical support companies in the central New Jersey area that serviced locations all the way out to New York City and all the way down as far south as Atlantic City, New Jersey, and into the Philadelphia area. So I traveled from New York to Philadelphia to Atlantic City to all around the whole state of New Jersey as this company's lead Macintosh support specialist. So as such, I consider them to be one of the leading, the company was called Gear 3 Technologies. I believe they still exist and are still out there doing this type of work and thriving, if I'm not mistaken. But I used to be their lead Macintosh support technician years ago. And as such, I considered myself one of the best technicians, particularly on the Macintosh platform in the tri-state area of Pennsylvania, southeastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, from the central New Jersey region into all of South Jersey and into Delaware as well. I did a few jobs in Delaware as well. But I would travel, put up by, been given leads on jobs by this company and then travel to many different locations, where I was an independent contractor being contracted out by this company. And as their lead technician, I considered that I was one of the best technicians on the Mac platform in the whole tri-state area. So, it's very natural that, and then following that, after I left that company, I worked at the University of Pennsylvania in their School of Medicine. And I worked in what's called SOMIS, S-O-M-I-S, which is the School of Medicine Information Services. That is their technical support division for the School of Medicine inside the University of Pennsylvania. I personally worked in the biomedical research facility for a while and left that to do What on Earth is Happening full time. First of all, I took a tremendous hit in any monetary compensation to do What on Earth is Happening full time. I saw that the number may have been enough just to float me for a little while, and like really not even that. Let's be honest. Like I had to rely on help from others for a little while until I could get this project off the ground to really just be able to provide the basic living requirements and support for myself. It was a tremendous hit on my wallet. Tremendous hit to do this full time. Okay, people think, oh, I'm being paid or I'm making all this money. Like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about at all. You don't know how little I receive. You know, like, you know, I do a conference or, you know, a workshop or something to that effect, and it has to float me for practically, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 months sometimes. Literally. And it's not that much money to float for that amount of time. You know, and if I told you like the total, I told you like for the last couple of years, the totality of my quote salary, if you want to even call it that, to do this work was like right around $13,000, $13,500. Like imagine, that's pauper. That's pauper level. That's like it almost, you could call that the extreme poor. That's the very lowest end of what you could call the middle class. That is scraping to have what you need on a daily basis to get by. That is like anything bad goes wrong and you have to put out multiple thousands of dollars for something, you're fucked. That's basically what that kind of a salary is. So I ask anybody, like, look at what your salary for your job is. Is it under that amount? Most people, there's very few jobs that you're making that little amount of money. So I'd say I've done a little bit better than that in the last year and a half to 1 year, but not drastically. Okay? You know, around, you know, I'd say the $20,000 mark, if that. And it's like half of that, you know, like if I make $10,000 in resources, that has to float me for half a year. You know, imagine doing that. Most people would not be able to live and survive on that and do other things like what this work entails. No way. It's very little money compared to the amount of money I used to make, which was above $50,000 a year. Okay? I'm nowhere near even getting back to that level. Not even close. Okay? So people, like, I'm just forthcoming about that. I'm just forthcoming. That's the amount of resources in the way of donations that come in. That is what this work is valued at for the people who actually contribute. That the totality of people who contribute have valued this work at around that value monetarily. That's just what it is. I'm not complaining. I'm saying that's just the actual number. And if most people looked at that number and said, could I survive on that? There is no way that they would be able to do it. They would say, you want me to get involved in doing that? Fuck you. That's what they would say. That's why most people don't get involved in that, because their primary motivation is monetary compensation. That's their primary goal, is how much money am I going to make doing this? Not, is it going to help end human slavery? That's what our primary motivating goal needs to be. At the same time, I'm not some naive, wild-eyed, you know, optimist, head in the sky guy that thinks I could survive on absolutely no resources and continue to do this at this aesthetic level, you know, and production value level, and still survive and feed myself or pay for shelter over my head. Obviously, we're living on a world where resources for those things are required. You know, it isn't about some wild, you know, head in the clouds vision of, oh, I could just do this and not have to worry about any money coming in. I don't do another job. This is my job right now. I want this to be my job. You know what I really want to be my job? I really want my job to be my head in a pile of books doing the research for my future presentations with my computer in front of me making slides for those presentations, because I would be able to make probably 5 to 10 times the amount of content that I do now if I were actually supported with a team that could offset the workload that I need to do in the way of technical work, video work, etc. Okay? That's what I would love to have. I would love to have, some type of support in place so that when something goes wrong, I don't have to linearly take myself away. See, it's like linear work. It's like I can continue to do this work until, wait, something just went wrong here. Well, this work now has to stop. Now I have to go over here in this tangent and I have to fix the problems that halted that work till they're fixed. Then I can continue. If I have a technician that would be willing to come on board this project, I would be able to, I'm working, okay, a technical problem has happened, but I can go to a different computer now and I can continue the work while somebody else gets that issue back to where it was and fixes it, and then I can go back and work on that other computer. I can't do this at this point. Basically, if anything happens in the whole setup that requires technical know-how and that requires technical attention, I am the person who has to go and stop what I am doing to fix that. So here's the next part of what we are asking for here at What on Earth is Happening. And once again, I'm not asking anybody to totally put themselves out. This might be a 1 day a week thing for a few hours. Okay? I'm not asking anybody to put themselves out. I'm trying to build resources, bring in resources through voluntary donations from people that have some extra resources that they can contribute, not asking anyone to put themselves out, so that we can pay a technical expert to come in and help us troubleshoot when problems occur. Because let me tell you something, folks, this is one of the things that has come close to affecting my health. Okay, a lot of people will say, don't ever tell people, when things bad happen, don't announce bad news, don't announce what your potential weakness is. I'm being honest with people. This is something that I really, really desperately need taken off my plate. Okay, because when things like this happen, and I have to be the one that fixes it because no one around me knows more than me in these technical areas. There are some who help and lend good assistance, but in general, when something really bad... Look, folks, here's what happened. I'm going to just be honest with you. And even my producer and assistants do not know this. Okay? I think the only person who knows this is like a couple of my good friends and my assistant, Leah. My main system went completely down this week, and I'm not sure whether it might have been a hack or sabotage, okay, from the outside. I'm not sure. The computer that you are seeing this stream coming from was completely unbootable, down and out. And look, folks, I am meticulous about maintaining backups. I have on-site backups, and I have off-site backups. You ain't taking shit down. Okay? If this was a deliberate effort. You ain't taking shit down. Okay? Because I have off-site backups that I can restore from where I'm at like nothing happened. Okay? So, first of all, I'm not saying it was definitely deliberate. It could have just been an operating system issue. But I had to restore from a backup this week, and it's the first time that has happened on this equipment. I restored from a backup and got the machine back up in perfect working condition like nothing ever happened. But let me tell you something. Most people, first of all, would not know how to do that or not have been prepared for that eventuality. I'm prepared for these eventualities because I know that they can happen. And when they do happen, then I have to put my know-how and expertise into action. And I had to do that this week. So there was almost no show this week because my main machine was down. But I got it back up within a day. So that being said, and it drove me crazy, it was very stressful. What I'm saying is I really need issues like this taken off my plate because I had to sit and basically do that work. When I could have been out there making my slides for this that I stayed up until about 3 o'clock in the morning doing, So the whole point is I need a technical person. Okay? I need somebody who is a technical expert. Again, listen to what's being asked for. Local to this area. You must come here. Obviously, you can't work on technical problems remotely, especially when it comes to plugging in cables, unplugging cables, plugging power sources in, etc. Routing cables. It's someone who needs to be here working with the physical equipment. I don't care if you have technical skills and you're from Anchorage, Alaska. Okay, you need to be from Philadelphia or the Philadelphia area and be able to come here at least a day a week. Or when I ask, like on an on-call basis, like if I have a problem, okay, if you're available that night, if you're available the next morning, you need to be able to come at your earliest convenience. That's what I'm asking for, okay? And this is so important. This is as important as the editing position, if not more so. You don't understand how much it actually affects my stress and health when all the technical problems fall to me. My staff can tell you, I really, really, really know what I'm talking about and really know my shit when it comes to technical stuff. But I would prefer someone else with at least my level of technical knowledge come on board and really take some of the technical work off of my plate. Okay? I mean, you look at some other people, do you think, who are doing the work and putting information out there, do you think they're doing their own technical work? Okay? And again, we may be able to pay something. Right now, we're not a big operation. We're not a big operation hiring a lot of people. We want to bring more resources in and be able to do that. But right now, this may have to be, again, with the donations that come in as part of the video editing project for the natural law documentary, and maybe some of those we can turn toward the effort of helping to pay on a job, maybe a per job basis, a technical expert to come in and help and offset these duties from my plate. Okay, so if you are a technical expert who is very experienced, I'm talking about a high level expert now. If you're even a novice or an intermediate person, just don't bother. You have to know like as much as I do about operating systems and equipment. All right. So we're talking about a technical expert here with high level expertise in Mac OS. We use the latest Mac OS operating system, which right now is Mac OS Mojave 10.14. We're right up at the most recent version, which I think is 10.14.6. We are up to date on all of our systems. You know, this is what we use for our Macs here. And for Windows, we're running the latest build of Windows 10, you know, with all the security patches applied. Okay, so we're on modern OSs. We're on modern equipment. We don't keep 10-year-old computers in here. We don't keep, you know, ancient machines running ancient operating systems. These are relatively state-of-the-art equipment here. Okay? So my mic? The laptop? Okay. My producer's telling me we're having an issue with the laptop. I'm going to replug here momentarily. I apologize for that. Okay. Let's see if we're back okay. Let's try this again. For some reason, it is bugging out periodically. I'll look into why that's happening. It may be that there's too much tension on that cable right there. So we'll have to, you know, work that out. But anyway, if you have experience with Mac OS and Windows, the latest versions, okay, we will be, when upgrades come out, like moving to Catalina, which is the next Mac OS operating system coming out very soon, and, you know, future versions of Windows, we, you know, basically stay pretty much up to date. And when our hardware becomes long in the tooth or obsolete, we upgrade our hardware. We don't keep ancient things going here and float on a wing and a prayer with, you know, decades old equipment. That's not how we do things here. We try to maintain relatively state of the art, not always the ultimate highest end stuff, but at least good to top end mid end equipment, to the top of the mid end range at minimum. Okay. And I think that's how you maintain good quality and aesthetics with your stuff. Okay. That you're putting forward. So if you have this experience troubleshooting these systems and you are local to Philadelphia, it cannot be done remotely. please contact my assistant, Leah Boone, at leah@whatonearthishappening.com. Once again, that is spelled LEIHA at whatonearthishappening.com. So let's move on to the next order of business about the future of What on Earth is Happening. I have been planning the One Great Work Network for well over a year, maybe even a little bit longer than that. I am at the beginning stages of working with a developer to make a modern web-based system for this network, where we are going to bring multiple hosts onto the network, and it's going to be a network where we put out both free content and some premium content for subscribers to bring in some resources. This is probably going to be one of the best networks on the entire internet once we get it up and running. We also need resources for this because, again, the developers that we are working with are doing so right now on a volunteer basis, but at some point I want to get them paid for their efforts. And when we do launch it, there will be a subscription model, but there will be a large amount of content that will be available on this network for free as well. So it will be free content, and it will be a portion of it will be premium content for subscribers to the network. That is how we plan on bringing in some more resources to the What on Earth is Happening effort, and to get the content providers paid for their efforts so that they can expand their reach. I don't want people who come onto this network just doing it for free. I want them to have some compensation for their efforts. This is what projects like this are supposed to be about. Conferences are supposed to be about that. Any events that people host and bring researchers and speakers on board with, one of the goals, the first and primary goal, should be about ending slavery on Earth. Getting the word out about true anarchy, getting the word out about natural law, and ending human slavery. Okay? That's first and foremost. That should be our primary goal. Second to that should be getting some resources to the content providers to be able to continue their work. This was our ultimate goal in the early days of the Free Your Mind conferences, the first two Free Your Mind conferences. After that, I only assisted with promotion for the Free Your Mind events. I think a lot of people still don't know that. I totally hosted and was the main organizer of Free Your Mind 1 and Free Your Mind 2. Those are the only events that I was the actual organizer for. As of Free Your Mind 3, 4, and 5, the duties for the organizational tasks of those conferences were completely handed off to other people. And I, allowed them to continue the use of the name in good faith. Now, the first two are the only ones I can speak to about what the intent and ultimate goals were, because I was the one who was the main organizer for that, and I ran the organizational team. And our goals were, first and foremost, get the information out to people. Secondly, to get some resources out to the researchers. Every single researcher and speaker that was a part of the first two Free Your Mind conferences received some compensation for what they took, the role that they took part in the conference. Some agreed to do it pro bono, not receive anything, and some we had agreements with to pay them what we could based on what we brought in, and we honored those agreements. And in my involvement with all of the other Free Your Mind conferences, the agreements that I personally made with the organizers were also honored as far as any monetary compensation. That being said, I think that should be the second goal. The first goal being put the information out there and ending the human condition of slavery. That should be your primary goal when you're organizing anything. And again, I'm referring to the One Great Network here as well. That's why I'm talking about this. But I'm extending it to extend to any other project that we do in this community. I feel the primary goal should be the information and helping others to understand it, and ultimately ending the human condition of slavery on Earth. The secondary goal is putting some resources into the wallets, into the pockets of the content providers, the speakers, the people who are hosts on the network, etc. These are the people who people are coming to see or paying for premium content, etc. Okay? You have to take care of them. You have to honor your agreements with them. That's secondary. That's the secondary goal. The third goal, and the one that should be the last one, is making resources for yourself as the organizer to be able to not only help to take care of yourself and the things you need on a daily basis to survive, but then to also roll surplus back into the project. Okay? So that's what I do here at What on Earth is Happening. We take in resources, I take what's required for me, and then I roll whatever the surplus is back into the project. I want to make enough of that surplus to get people paid. I want to pay my producer, my assistant, my, tech person, my, developers, etc. Right? Right now, most of them do this on a volunteer basis or for very, very modest sums. That it's not really acceptable. They should receive more. So, but again, what I can do is I can only provide the extent that people value this operation at, because it is a viewer-funded operation. This is a listener and viewer-funded operation, funded by donations only. This is not a business. This is not a 501c3 tax-exempt foundation. We are not any kind of an organization. We are not an LLC. Nothing like that. Nothing. There is nothing like that. We do not operate under any business operational rules of any organization, corporation, LLC, nothing. Okay? This is a private educational outreach. That's it. That's it. And it is helped by sovereign beings on a volunteer basis. And it is entirely funded by voluntary sovereign donations that come in. And that is what people value this project at. Most people will not operate anything that they do like that, because they will not go on the faith of what human beings are willing to contribute. Okay? They will set it up as whatever entity or foundation or corporation under government rules, etc., and go into the whole tax thing. This is 100% a sovereign project that is ultimately run by me and people who volunteer to assist in the educational outreach effort. Completely made possible by supporters' individual, private, sovereign donations, and nothing else. It never has been anything else. Okay? What on Earth is Happening is just the name of the website and the show. That's it. It's just me doing this, folks, with help from good people and help from people who have a little bit of resources to spare, and they are willing to voluntarily contribute that on a one-to-one, private, personal basis. That's it. I think more of the freedom and alternative media community should run by that model. I absolutely think people should run their whole operation by that model. Most people don't have the faith in the universe to run their operation on that model. Okay? I'll not even call it faith in humanity, but faith in the universe itself to provide what is going to be required to do that. That is the model I run What on Earth is Happening on, and always have, and always will. So, we want to get this network launched. This is some of the art that Seth Casposa made for the network, and I think it's great. And we want to, make this network a shining example of what people could do when they come together in a cooperative effort in the name of human freedom can do. That's the goal for the One Great Work Network. And I think when you see it, you're going to be hopefully impressed and want to support it and want to be a part of it. So we're going to have probably at least, I'm hoping at least 10 hosts, maybe slightly less than that when we first start. But I hope we can expand that even to a greater number and get some of our hosts compensated through your donations to the network when we launch it next year, hopefully, and get some of them compensated for the great work that they do. That's what this is all about. That will be our secondary goal for the network, is getting hosts of the network compensated. The first goal will be putting the word out, getting the information out to people that need to see and hear it. So that's the One Great Work Network. Hopefully that will be coming in 2020. Again, we have a brilliant developer who's helping us to launch this, and we're going to have some form of a subscription model when we launch it. Okay. Finally, I'm going to be taking part in the next Seed conference. Now, I wasn't sure whether this was Seed 4 or 5. The poster says 4. This is going to be taking place in Rutland, Ohio. This is organized by the people who do Skatopia. So that's Brandon Martin, who was the recent recipient of this year's One Great Work Award. I really should have put that in this slideshow. I'll talk about it the next time I come on air. Well, Brandon Martin was the recipient of the 2019 One Great Work Award. And he's the main host of Skatopia, a main host of Seed, the Seed Conference. And the next one is going to be taking place May 29th, 30th, and 31st, 2020 in Rutland, Ohio at Skatopia. Seed stands for Studying, Educating, Enlightening, and Discerning. And I have made a prior commitment to agreeing to make an appearance at the Seed Conference, to actually do a presentation at the Seed Conference prior to deciding that I'm not going to take part in others' conferences anymore. And once again, I'm not really going to say too much about that, except that after Seed, I will be honoring what I said, that I will not be taking part in third-party conferences from that point forward, because I made a commitment to be a part of the next Seed conference prior to deciding that. I will honor that agreement, as I made an agreement with Brandon to take part in the next Seed. So I will honor that agreement, and I will be at the next Seed conference. However, that will be the last conference that I will take part in. I will be doing my own, moving forward with any in-person events. They will be organized by me and no one else but me, with a small ancillary organizational team with members of my own personal choosing. And that will be it. This way, the entirety of the event is up to me, how it is run, organized, set up, what it will cost, any of those details. The technical arrangements, all of it will fall to me and whatever staff I agree to work with as part of the event. So Seed will be the last time I will be taking part in a public conference organized by someone else. All other events that I do will more likely than not be here in Philadelphia, that I will organize myself, and the format will be as such. I'll describe what I will be doing. Either it will be me doing an all day, from beginning of the day, early in the morning till, around late dinner time, early evening, an entire all day event, mini conference, workshop, extended presentation, seminar, whatever you want to call it. Okay. And, or if I have a shorter form presentation, maybe like only a 2 or 3 hour one, or even a 4 hour one that will not take the entirety of the day, we will probably set up an all day form of a event, and I will have an opening speaker, like I did at Fake Ass Christians when Darrell Rowlands opened up for me, or like I did at Demystifying the Occult Part 2, Satanism and the Dark Occult, which Jay Parker was the opening speaker. So it will take on a form like that. Either it will probably always be some form of an all-day, one-day event that people can, travel from either Philadelphia or outside of the city to here in Philadelphia. And it will be an all-day event, either just myself, if we have a very long seminar. One of the first ones I'm probably going to do will be the occult origins of Nazism and communism. I've been talking about this one for a long time. I've been doing more research in the form of buying some books regarding this topic and delving into more research on it, both in book form and taking in information from internet-based resources. And this is going to be a extremely in-depth, all-day seminar that will be just me. It will be as long as probably the natural law seminar. Okay, where I'm going to go into just about every detail and aspect that both Nazism and communism are still, to this very day, the religions that own this planet. And for anybody to think in any way that I am aligned with or on any side of any of these sick, depraved, twisted, fucked up, religious, totalitarian control systems of belief, of sick religious belief, they have to be very seriously mentally ill. That's all I'm going to say on that. Very serious mental issues. If you think a person who has spoken out against both of these depraved religions, endlessly and tirelessly trying to get people to understand what these religious beliefs entail, they're not political systems. They're religious cults that I firmly stand against with every fiber of my spirit and being. And I have been trying to get people to understand exactly what these religious cults entail and how they sway people into their fold, into their cult belief system. For anyone to think I'm aligned with any of them has either not been paying attention and has not really looked into my work, and or they're very seriously mentally askew, is all I'll say on that. So, that being said, let's so that's going to be the form that future personal presentations take for me personally, instead of taking part in other people's conferences. Now, that being said, I think we're pretty much finished with the part of this presentation here today called The Future of What on Earth is Happening. So that's what I have planned for the near future. Okay, we will be back soon. We will be coming back hopefully by the beginning of 2020. If all goes well with how an editor responds for going forward with the documentary, with how donations, people respond with personal donations for funding the documentary. Okay? So let's move into the part of this about where is humanity at in consciousness now in late 2019. And folks, before we even start jumping into this hurts my heart to say the things I'm going to say in this section. We're probably not going to do calls. If we have some time, we will. More likely than not, I'm going to have to roll with this material till the end of the show because of how much there is. Okay? And it hurts my heart to present this because we should be way beyond this. And again, folks, I talk to people and listeners, viewers, personal friends, and they say, don't give people bad news. Don't show them your weakness or how this is affecting you. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to show you that this isn't in my hands. I don't got this. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is not entirely up to me. I am trying to explain that it has always been up to all of us. And you cannot put all the burden and the weight upon the shoulders of any one individual. No one is that strong. I do a good job covering up where my wounds are at. Okay? I do a good job persevering and pushing through it because that's part of the great work. That's part of you need thick skin to do this work. But for anyone to think this doesn't affect me stress-wise, this doesn't affect me in my emotional makeup, this doesn't affect me deep in my heart and my spirit, you would have to think I'm a robot. You would have to think I'm not human. And I'm just as human as anyone else. I fail just like anyone else. I am not perfect. I am prone to failure. I am prone to getting weak. I am prone to feeling like I need a break. This isn't a break for me. I'm going to be working very, very, very hard and continuously on this documentary that needs to get out to the world. So don't think this hiatus from the show is like a complete break of work for me. It is not. I will be doing other projects, but the main thing I will be doing is getting this workshop in its completed form, and that is practically going to be a full-time job. Okay? So what I want to talk about here is, has any appreciable change happened in the 12 years in human consciousness since I've started this effort personally? And I have to report that not only since I turned this into a video show from an audio podcast 9 months ago, going on to 10 months, really, next month, but in the 12 years since I have been publicly doing the work of what on earth is happening, in over 20 since I've really known this material, but in the 12 years since people eventually helped to light a fire under my ass and get me into actual action doing this, that not only not has anything changed publicly in the aggregate of humanity, but things have gotten infinitely worse. Infinitely worse. And I don't want to have to say that. You know what I want to come on the air and tell you? As viewers of the show, as longtime viewers and listeners, I want to come and say, you guys have done an awesome fucking job. Thank you. You've done so great that the world is changing for the better. And I cannot come on the air and say that. I can't do it. Because you know why? The overwhelming vast majority of you have failed at your task. And do you have a task? Yes, you do. This isn't something that's like, oh, great. I know, I understand what Mark's saying. Great. And you think that's it. If you think that's it, you don't understand a fucking thing. Not a one thing from Jump Street, from the get-go. You don't understand one thing about what this is about. How many of my viewership have moved effectively into the role of teaching people on a wide scale, not stopping someone you know on the street that has a little button with the hammer and sickle and trying to persuade them in a 5-minute fucking conversation, not that they're misled. That's not doing the great work. You're a fucking joke if you think that's what doing the great work is. You don't know the first thing about what this work entails or involves. And you certainly haven't started doing it if you think personal conversations. Look, I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not saying, forget about engaging anyone personally. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you believe that is what the work is, that you don't understand what the great work is. So my first few slides, I decided I don't want any graphics with them. I want to just put a statement down and really let you see my statement about where humanity is at. But specifically, I am referring to you as the listener, not the average Joe Schmo on the street of any major given city. I am referring to you, the viewers, the listeners of my work, because that is who has failed. You have failed. And get as offended about it as you like. Once again, see, folks, I'm not here to let you feel warm, fuzzy, and happy, in case you haven't gotten that by this point, this many years in. This isn't about you feeling good. This is about you accurately gauging the truth about what the human condition is, and then getting involved in a way that is effective in changing the human condition toward the positive outcome, meaning ending slavery. That's what this has always been about. And I have always been about targeting the potential teachers, the potential change agents, the potential influencers of others. And that's what I'm going to refer to here today. So the first thing I want to do is tell you why we have failed. This whole first section is going to be about why we have failed. The second section is going to be about where the average person is still at, which is the proof that we have failed. So I'm going to give you the why first, about why you, yourself, and other people who claim that they understand what is happening on Earth have failed in changing the human condition. You, yourself, have failed in changing the human condition. I'm going to explain the why first. And folks, let me just tell you this. Once again, it's not a blanket statement. If you have contributed in an effective way to the great work, wonderful. Then I thank you as my brother, my sister, and most of all, my peer. My mutual peer in the great work. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for assisting in the work. Do you know how few that is? It's a piss in a pot, as the old saying goes. It's nothing. I would say it is 0.01%, and I am probably being extraordinarily generous. I'm going to say that again. My estimated number, and let me tell you something, folks, I'm very good at estimating figures. I'm very good at extrapolation of demographics, percentages of how many people are doing something or not doing something. It's so scientifically accurate, it's almost scary how well I'm able to gauge things. I'm telling you, if the percentage of people who make the claim of understanding any part of what I've put forward at What on Earth is Happening are effectively and efficiently helping in the great work of changing the human condition, if it is 0.01% right now, I'm practically shitting my pants in joy if it's that number. Do you hear me? Do you hear what I'm saying? We are in abject failure of the mission. Abject failure of the mission. And there's a reason for that, and I'm going to tell you the reason today after I display some basic statistics. So let's go back to the slides. And these are my text statements about part of the reason why. And then I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty of why we failed in this duty, in this effort, in this mission, in this charge to end slavery on earth, why we are continuously failing. The first is 12 years on since I began What on Earth is Happening and have done this work tirelessly. 12 years later, most so-called anarchists, most people in what we call the freedom movement, there's no such thing. It's the My Freedom movement at best. Most people in the so-called freedom movement and most people in the so-called, quote, truth movement, and in whatever area of endeavor they're seeking truth. This could be the truth about vaccines. This could be the truth about what's in our food. This could be the truth about what's in our water. This could be the truth about the geoengineering operations. This could be the truth in extraterrestrial intelligence and its interaction with our planet. You could pick the topic. This could be the truth of ancient human origins. It doesn't make a difference what area of endeavor that you are seeking truth and seeking to expose truth. I'm talking about any area of the quote-unquote truth movement. The first thing is all of those people, not all, I'm sorry, no blanket statement, most. And when I say most, the word most here, I'm talking about the vast overwhelming majority. I'm talking about, I would put the number at 98% or greater. I'll be generous with you. If the number is 95% again, and 5% really do get it, I'm shitting my pants in utter joy. Okay? I'm going to say the number is closer to about 98% when I talk about the word most. The overwhelming vast majority of these groups of individuals who claim that they are doing any part of this work still do not understand what true anarchy or true freedom is. They don't get it. They don't understand it. They don't understand the requirements for it. Because if they did understand the requirements for it, they would become effective in distributing this knowledge. by whatever means they had to do that, they would do it. They wouldn't be talking about doing it. 12 years later, they'd be actively doing it. And most people, look, in the workshop I recently gave called Teaching Natural Law, overwhelmingly, the vast majority of people who attended were shocked by what the content was, first of all. Secondly, they were the overwhelming majority, even of the people who so want to be teachers of natural law, the overwhelming majority have little to none of the skill sets required, which is what I'm going to talk about. Okay? To even start the effort of teaching it. And this is why we haven't done it. This is why we are failing at it. And that is what part of the understanding of true freedom entails, because it entails what is the requirement or the role of knowledge? And if you understand that, what is the modern way of communicating knowledge? And if you understand that, what do you need to do to become a purveyor of that knowledge in the modern world? You yourself take that very knowledge into yourself, and then you start learning it and doing it. Anything short of that, it goes back to the old ancient Asian philosophy saying, those who know but do not do not know. It's only a claim of knowledge. To know and not to do is not to know. Saying, I know what true anarchy is and I know what true freedom is, and yet you do nothing to actually really propagate that message widely in modern technological society, then you don't know. You don't carry that knowledge. Because the biggest part of carrying that knowledge means you are communicating it to others in a wide scale format. Once again, other people believe what the great work is I'm going to go out on the street corner, or I'm going to go out in a grocery line, or I'm going to go out in, some other place in society, a tavern, a bar, whatever, right? And I'm going to wait until I hear someone say something of any interest to me, or maybe they say something that disagrees completely with what I know, or again, I see them wearing a little Socialist Party of America badge, okay? And then I'm going to try to educate them with the 10, 15, 20 minutes that I might have with them in a public space, in a public forum. I'm going to blurt out some verbal diarrhea to them in public and call that the great work. You've formalized zero of your work through even an outline, let alone a formalized presentation or video project, because you don't even understand how much work that involves. You don't even understand the skill sets involved in producing media such as that. No clue, zero clue. You think that the great work is, I'm going to meet somebody I've never met before that's totally ensconced in fucking mind control, and I'm going to blurt out some shit to them that is completely the antithesis to everything that they've ever believed in their mind-controlled fucking lives. And then magically that's going to change their mind and heart overnight. Or it's going to plant a seed that's somehow going to blossom and combat the mind control that they've received for however long they've been on this planet. And then one day they're going to wake up fucking enlightened. And you're a joke. You yourself are a joke. You got that? Get as offended as you fucking want. You're a joke. You don't understand what is required. You're a naive child. You're not part of the great work. You're a naive child. You're not part of doing the great work. You're a naive child. Okay? Look right in my eyes. Get fucking as offended as you want to get. You're not helping the effort. Look, I'm not saying I'm not telling anybody don't speak to anybody in whatever way they want. I'm saying just don't think you're actually putting a dent in things. You're not. You're not putting a dent in shit. Okay? And what this whole thing is supposed to be about, ladies and gentlemen, is creating more content creators. powerful teachers with the tool set required to go out and do what things like I have done. You don't have to do the exact same thing. Some people will go out and write books. Wonderful. Go out and write books. Some people will go out and produce documentary films. Wonderful. Go out and produce documentary films. Some people will go out and they'll put themselves in a public platform night after night after night where they're reciting poetry about this, or they're doing spoken word, or they're doing, music with a very good lyrical message. Wonderful. If those are your forms of media, go out and do that. What I'm saying is you have to put your work forward publicly with your name on it, not with some pseudonym or fucking mask. Be proud of your work if it's supporting the end of human slavery. Don't show fear. Put your real name on it. And yes, my real birth given name, legal name, whatever the hell you want to call it, I really could care less about a label. But I'm saying my name that people have known me since I was born is Mark Passio. It is not anything other than that. People who are saying that it is something else other than that don't know what the fuck they're talking about, or they're liars deliberately. I don't hide anything about what I do to anyone. I don't really care who agrees or disagrees, and I'm not in fear of anybody that wants to try to stop me. Do your worst. You won't stop me in this lifetime or any other. Again, the worst that can happen is you put a bullet in my flesh in this lifetime, and I'm coming right back in the moment. In the moment. And people want to say, there's speculation about reincarnation. Folks, I've made the commitment to be here until the mission is accomplished. Call that whatever you want. If I'm given the choice, I don't choose escape. I'm coming right back here. I'll pick another body in the second I'm ejected from this one. And I will be back here to learn the lessons again if required and do it all over again. That's the preternatural willpower you're up against with this one. So good luck. Good luck in whatever you choose to do to try to thwart that kind of will. You will lose. Okay? So that's number one. That being said, I get to a point where I'm like, the effort is futile because we are up against a species that is almost beyond being able to be taught anything. That's how hardened their ego is. And I've talked about this on former shows. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop, but I'm damn well going to express my aggravation over that. Okay? And doing that is my catharsis to keep going. And I have to be honest about where people are. They are total hard-headed motherfuckers. They don't want to learn. They don't want to know or see the truth. But worse than that are the people who claim to know the truth and have not made any appreciable effort in becoming a teacher of it. Because I believe at some point, if people hear it enough over and over, see, that's why it's called the great work, folks. The great work isn't, I said that to the person wearing the communist badge at the rally last week in Center City, my town, USA, and they told me to go fuck myself. So I've planted the seed, and I'm done with that. And I did the great work. And yet, you know how many people think that's what it is? You know how many people give up that easily and that quickly? And you think you've done something and you haven't done shit. You've done exactly balls squat shit. And I calculated that. I used a slide rule. I used an abacus, the whole thing. I set it all up. I calculated that to the exact figure. It's squat balls shit is what you've done. That's what you've done. All the people who think that this is just going to be communicated by word of mouth to people who don't want to hear it. You believe that. We need to produce so much media that it cannot ever be censored. We need to produce it on regular old-fashioned networks, regular file sharing, regular video sharing. We need to produce it on distributed sharing sites like BitTorrent. We need to produce it on any new media possible. People need to be drowning in this knowledge, drowning in it because of how much content has been created about it. And we haven't done squat balls shit is the exact figure. Okay? Go take your scientific calculator and calculate the number yourself to the exact decimal place, because that's it. That's where this movement is. And then people want to say, oh, that's offensive to me. Fuck you. If you're offended by that, it's because you need to be offended by it. How about that? Those who have done the work need feel no offense. Those who have done it effectively, those who have put it out there publicly, those who have put your name on it, and you could be proud of your work because you're getting it out there in a wide scale way, you're my brothers and sisters in this battle. Thank you. And I'm not speaking to you, obviously, in this communique. I'm talking to the people who have done practically nothing or nothing. You should be ashamed of yourselves. One, you need to turn that into motivation. Don't dwell in the shame. Start now and move forward in your learning of what's required to get it out there. And folks, the new media requires knowledge of new technology. It's unacceptable that this many years into having this technology at our fingertips, that people still don't know how to fucking use it. It's unacceptable. Unacceptable. And now it's easier than ever, and the tools are more powerful than ever. We should be reaching people 1,000 times the scale of the traditional media, and we're not. We're not. And the people who think we are, you're delusional. You are delusional. You say it's the dinosaur media, it's not reaching people anymore. People are going far from it in droves. You're delusional people. You are delusional. You think that people don't bow down to politics and they are fully ensconced in the cult of politics, of left versus right politics? You're out of your fucking gourd. You're out of your fucking gourd. You're delusional. You don't see reality for what it is. The cult of government is stronger than ever. They've put people into total political identification more than they ever have in the past. People are brainwashed into this cult more than they ever have been. So 12 years on, people still don't understand what real freedom is. And that is because you haven't been doing the job of communicating it through the new form of media, which is publicly putting your work online everywhere you can. Not just on YouTube, everywhere. That's the other thing, counting on just all these big tech platforms to do it. So moving forward, see if that corrected it. Yep. Okay. Moving forward. Okay. The same people 12 years on later don't understand the occult. They don't understand, and really in the anarchist movement, I mean, they are so hard-headed, left-brained, it's sickening. It really is. It's really disturbing. And they think they're not brainwashed and they're out of the brainwashing just because they don't believe in rulers. You don't understand the mindset of your rulers. You don't understand the religion of your rulers. You don't understand the ancient knowledge of the family lineages of your rulers that led them to be able to rule you, because they rule so many other people's minds and get them to condone your rulership. And in not knowing that knowledge of the occult, you certainly don't know the way to get those people out of that mind control. You don't know what to show them. You don't know what to explain to them. And you think you could do it just by telling them, oh, you're an occult belief system about authority. That's only the very tip of the iceberg in the beginning. It exposes nothing about the ancient psychological knowledge that goes hand in hand with the illegitimacy of authority. And almost everybody in the anarchist movement wants no part of teaching the occult to others, because they don't want to be seen as, oh, that's some hokum religious bullshit. When I've explained ad nauseum, no, it's just ancient psychological knowledge that has the moniker the occult because the word occult simply means hidden. It has been hidden from the general population because you don't brainwash the population and then teach them how they were brainwashed. Because if they have the knowledge about how they were brainwashed, they will use it to unbrainwash themselves. That's the knowledge of the occult. Yet other people want to insist, oh, there's nothing to that, or it's unnecessary to explain or to teach, or I don't want to do it because of how it will make me look to my peers who are equally left brain in the anarchist scene. I could care less, okay, about how this is perceived in any particular movement. You go into the UFO field and start talking anarchy, and they look at like you're crazy because they think disclosure is going to come through the government next year. You know, you go into the anarchist scene and you start telling them animals should not be aggressed upon just like humans shouldn't, and they look at you like you have 7 snakes growing out your neck because they don't want to extend the same non-aggression principle to non-human beings that they want to extend to human beings. You know, you go into the vaccine, the anti-vaccine movement, you know, and you talk about we need the truth about how harmful vaccinations have been to humanity, but we also need to get the truth about human origins out and get the truth about the interactions human beings have had in our past and present with extraterrestrial entities. And then the anti-vax people look at you like you're crazy because there's no holistic truth and freedom movement. There's the my truth and my freedom movement. That's all there is and ever has been. And they're piss in a pot efforts that are going nowhere and will continue to go nowhere because people do not understand what true anarchy is. They do not understand what true freedom is. They do not understand the true principles of anarchy and freedom. They do not understand what the occult is. They do not understand the psychological, individual shadow material work that must be done as someone who studies the psychological knowledge of the occult. Most people want no part of that personal work. People don't understand the holistic aspects of any of this. It's all fragmented. And that's why it continues to fail. Because people don't have the totality of the knowledge they need, but most of all, they don't have the knowledge on how to propagate the totality of that knowledge to others. So let's move forward to the next slide. Most people in all of these movements, 12 years later, since I've started the work of teaching this, still don't understand natural law. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the crux of all of it. Even the people in the so-called freedom movement, the so-called anarchist movement, the so-called occult movement even, the reason they're not truly effective in changing anything is because they didn't get the memo on the most important occult knowledge. There are occultists out there that claim to be deep-level occultists with deep-level knowledge of the occult and how it works that talk zero about natural law, talk zero about true rights, talk zero about what is a right, what does actually cause harm, what actually doesn't cause harm because it is outside of the few actions that does cause harm, initiate harm. The true non-aggression principle. The true transgressions against other beings, against natural law and other beings' rights. The true 7 deadly sins. You have so many people who say that they want to teach the occult and know absolutely no part of any of this. Sorry. Have we made any progress in really teaching natural law to people? I would say, again, it's a piss in a pot effort. People think I can just tell people this by word of mouth with no formalized way of explaining it. I've even given people my slides. Told, go out and use my own slides if you don't want to make your own. I've formalized it. Can you even make an outline in a goddamn word processor? You know, can you even Formalize your thoughts into an outline of, I want to explain this. This is why this is important. Here's what I'm going to talk about here. And then put it out in a formalized way. Buy a teleprompter, put it in front of a video camera, and read it if you have to, if you don't want to do it off the cuff. Most of my stuff is done off the cuff. Sometimes I put some notes down on a screen next to me if I want to remember a big list of things I want to talk about. But I know it so well I could discuss it off the cuff. First of all, you got to get that good at explaining something, you know? And most people can't explain natural law well. Most people can't give the definition of a right, even the people who watch this show or listen to what I've been saying since the beginning. You have to get your rhetoric under you. That's why I say, start recording your voice. Start listening back to it. Start doing this where you eliminate the, try to do your best to get to a point where you make your point in a succinct way. Most people still are not doing any part of this. They're not teaching it. Most don't understand it deeply enough yet. This is the problem. Go back and listen to the natural law seminar 10 times if you have to get it all. Incorporate it. Read the books that I've recommended that are in the section on the podcast, in the podcast section on the website, on the What on Earth is Happening website. Go to the podcasts on natural law. Do a find on page in the podcast section. Find the parts of the podcast where I discuss natural law. There are lots of books that talk about these dynamics. And then you could use them as launching pads to find tons of other material on natural law. It's out there. Get the ARC drive. A lot of stuff on natural law is on the ARC drive. Listen to other researchers who have talked about it. Manly P. Hall has talked about it. Richard Wetherill has talked about it. More people need to be talking about it. Okay? So this is one of the other main reasons. Now there's two more. Okay? And some people will, take offense from one of them, but, I'm going to put it out there as this thing because, first of all, people still aren't taking this seriously enough about how much this contributes etheric energy-wise to what we are experiencing as human beings in the form of our slavery. Most people in all of these movements, the anarchist movement, the freedom movement, the truth movement, these so-called movements still condone harming animals for food. And when you say that this is something that is still a practice that we should be moving beyond and we shouldn't be engaged in because we should extend the non-aggression principle to all beings, not just human animals, but to non-human ones as well. And that we are condoning and contributing to suffering that is going out into the world in an energetic, etheric scale. And again, I'm not a militant vegan. I'm not saying that you need to get this all at once or you need to convert to this all at once. I'm saying you need to understand the principle first. Then you can align your behavior to the principle. Okay, move away from supporting and condoning it, just like you move away from supporting and condoning statism. No one needs to become an anarchist in 1 second or 1 hour or 1 day or 1 week. It's a process. The same is true for understanding not harming animals to the extent that we are capable of. It's called doing the least harm possible. Look, I want to personally thank Gina Carr for her fantastic work in this effort. Heart to heart, thank you. You do this beautifully. Okay? And you had me on the verge of tears with your recent presentation. It's the way it should be done. It's done very well. Okay? Once again, because I think she does it very effectively. I think you should look into the people that she talked about in her presentation. Melanie Joy and others, etc. Okay? That's what I call contributing to an aspect of the great work, effectively. This is an anarchist who talks about doing our best to cause the least amount of harm possible to our non-human brothers and sisters. And putting it out there in a way that shows people the ways we are now contributing to that harm and the ways that we can, over a process of time, pull back our involvement with that and our condoning of it. And that's all. You don't have to be militant about it. There was nothing militant in her words explaining it, which is why I so appreciated it. You know? So thank you, and I thank you for your contribution to the great work in that regard. And there are many others doing great work like that. That's why I gave the Great Work Award to Brandon Martin. I think he's doing it very effectively and putting out the word very efficiently and effectively. He formalizes his thoughts and his words and puts it out there with nice aesthetics publicly with his name on it. Great job. Okay? So that's the next part. All right? I won't spend too much time on that. I just wanted to incorporate it. And then next, most of these same groups, they are still moral relativists. They still do not understand that right and wrong are not something that human beings get to decide for themselves, get to choose and decide and cherry pick, and that right and wrong are up to human beings' perception. Okay? That has nothing to do with what true right and true wrong are. Right is an action. A right is an action that does not cause harm to other sentient beings, that does not initiate harm to other sentient beings. Wrongdoings are behaviors which do initiate harm to other sentient beings. They are murder, assault, rape, theft, trespass, coercion, willfully lying, the true 7 deadly sins. The 7 transgressions against natural law, which are violations of the rights of other beings. Most people in all of these movements are still moral relativists, and if you ask them where do rights come from, they will say human beings create rights. They are human constructs, and they are not inherent to nature. And that is where they would be wrong. They would be incorrect, and that is why one of the reasons we are not making progress. Okay, so these are the reasons why, what we still don't understand, that are contributing to the continuation of human slavery. If you really understand the actual causal factors. And if you do, the next thing I'm going to tell you is why you have failed in getting the word out. Why haven't the people who claim that they understand these things actually helped to contribute to change the human condition? Why has the effort to do that been so paltry, been such a piss-poor effort? Why has it failed thus far at this point in human history, when it should have gone far beyond the point that it's at? Again, I was expecting, by this point, I would have expected to either have the current human condition solved, meaning there would be a solution brought forward and enacted, and slavery would already be ended. Human slavery would be ended. That's how naive I was in how good and effective human beings would be once they heard the truth. Boy, did I gauge human beings all wrong. I was a naive person who gave way too much credit to other people in what was in their minds, in what was in their hearts, and ultimately what their willpower would be. I completely misjudged way too far toward the positive scale, because that's where my hope was when I was younger. And I'm not too proud to say I was wrong. I was wrong about all those things. I was told that I was wrong about all of those things by the Satanists that I work with. And when I was told that by them, I literally wanted to kill them with my bare hands. I made the decision not to do that so I wouldn't end up dead. And I could, at some point, put this information and this knowledge out. But I have to come back on the air 12 years, well, really like 15 to 17 years or so after those experiences and say I was wrong. And the Satanists who were the part of the masters of the world, the group that constitutes the masters of our reality, were correct in what they told me about where the heart, minds, and souls of human beings are at. They were correct and I was wrong. There it is, not too proud to admit it. See, I have that ability when information that is contrary and contradicts my previously held belief is put forward. I can say words that most others cannot. I was wrong. I put way too much faith that upon hearing the truth, people would change. People would contribute to the work of educating others. They did not. The vast overwhelming majority of them did not. Again, not a blanket statement. Most, meaning the vast majority, meaning 98% or greater. Maybe more than that. What they did is continue to live their own lifestyles that they had always lived, trying to garner as much personal freedom as possible, trying to, have as much personal comfort as possible in their own lives, and did not take on the burden of the great work, which makes your life less comfortable, which makes your life much more burdensome, which you have to do at the same time as all. It's a simultaneous work, the work that you have to do in your life and the great work. You can't separate them in time, because what you're going to be doing is expecting something that will never come. I'll have my life to exactly the point that I'm perfectly comfortable, then I'll start the great work. There is no such thing. I did not do that. I continued to work with up to a certain point. Yes, you can do that. You can't be completely in a state of disarray. You have to have some level of organization in your life, yes. Okay? But if you're expecting, I'm going to get everything exactly where I want it and then I'll start, you will never begin. And that's why most people have never begun. Okay? So, most people are still moral relativists that do not understand the objective difference between right and wrong behavior. And the people who do understand the objective difference between right and wrong, and understand most people don't, and who know that the putting of that out into the world as the knowledge of natural law is what's going to reverse the human condition of slavery, you yourselves have not taken the burden of the great work upon yourself in enough numbers and move forward into actually doing it. I'm going to give you now a part of the workshop I recently gave called Teaching Natural Law, of 2 slides, which was the question that I had to ask myself in what I wanted to really cover in the natural law workshop, in Teaching Natural Law. And then I'm going to give you the answer to that. None of the other parts are going to be talked about right now, but I'm going to give you the premise, which was, why are we in the position we are in? And answer. The question is why we're in the position that we're in, and then I'm going to answer it. Okay? So, the next slide. This is from Teaching Natural Law. Obviously, what we need is more of the great work to be done to teach natural law into the world. Most people don't know what natural law means. I'm going to show you that in our social media experiment results for the year 2019. But my question that I wanted to go into, which was the premise of the entirety of my Teaching Natural Law workshop, it wasn't about what do you need to talk about to teach natural law. You can go watch my natural law seminar for that, or listen to the What on Earth is Happening podcast series for that. That's all out there. That material's out there. What my workshop on Teaching Natural Law was about was answering this question. You say you want to be a teacher of natural law. You say you want to do the great work. I ask people how many people feel that they are actively out there and really doing it effectively and efficiently, and like 3 people in the whole fucking room raised their hand. And I said, well, that's why you're here, right? It's unacceptable that 3 people, and then if you include myself, 4 people in a room of over 100 are even doing this. But why? Is it because you don't know what to say? I don't believe that's the case for an instant. I don't believe that's the reason for an instant. Most people know why we're in the position that we're in. Is it because you don't know natural law at all? Well, why would you come to a workshop about teaching it if you don't know it? People who are advanced enough in a topic that they want to become teachers of it usually know a whole lot about it, right? So it isn't that you don't know it. I brought people up on the microphone and asked them questions about natural law, and they practically spit it right out there. So we proved, you know this stuff, right? You know it. So why haven't you begun the great work of being a teacher of it? Now, at this point, why aren't you already in that position? And you can go and try to answer this in a billion different ways, but it all comes back full circle. It all revolves back to one overarching answer, which was the main premise of all the rest of the data that I gave and put forward at my workshop, Teaching Natural Law. And here's the answer. Most human beings, including the people that say they know enough about natural law to teach it, are not truly literate in modern communications and publishing technology. You'll talk to so many people out there, and especially some people that are around my age, but even a little bit older than my age. Okay, I turned 45 this past summer. I think I am still pretty damn active, in decent shape, and good energy. Feeling good energy with a lot of willpower to continue and do things at that age. And, there are lots of younger people who say that they understand this and want to do it. And even them I would include in this group, but I would really include the people that are around my age or older in this answer to the underlying causal factor of even those people who do understand this material. Why are you not actively putting it out there to others? And the answer is they don't know how. You actually do not know how to effectively reach a large amount of people in the digital domain, that's where the battlefield is at, ladies and gentlemen. The battlefield is not in newspapers. The battlefield is not even in books anymore. The battlefield is not in the nightly news. The battlefield is not out on the street. The battlefield is on the internet. The battlefield is in the digital space. And guess what, folks? It's not on social media either. This was a main premise of my work in this workshop as well. The battle is not in social media. The battle is in content creation. Let me say that again. The battle for the hearts and minds of the people of this planet is in who is going to create the most content regarding either mind control tactics that tell people total bullshit lies and get them to believe it, or the battle is going to be in speaking the truth as to why humanity's in the condition that it's in and how to get it out of that condition. And here's the answer, folks. I want to go back to this slide. The answer is most human beings, and I'm talking the bulk of the people who say that they understand natural law and want to teach it, are not truly literate in modern communications technology and modern publishing technology. You don't know how to create your own media. You don't know how to publish your media even once it is created. You don't know how to reach people through modern communications media, the mediums of modern communication. You don't know how to reach people using that form of media. And this is why we're failing. This is the main reason we are failing as a movement. In addition to all the communities I talk about not understanding those main things, not understanding true anarchy, true freedom, natural law, the occult, even the mind control techniques that are used against us, which I would consider are part of the occult knowledge, still being moral relativists and still condoning the harm of non-human animals, which contributes to our enslavement. All of those things combined, that's why we're failing. Why aren't those messages reaching the people of the earth? And it's because the people who do have even a modicum of knowledge in those fields, or are specialists in certain parts of that knowledge, you are not effectively reaching people en masse on a wide scale in the digital domain, which is the new battleground for the hearts and minds of people. You cannot go out and just talk to people on a one-to-one level and expect the world to change because you don't know how to do it on a wide scale with technology. I'm sorry, but that makes you a Luddite, a person who loathes the use of technology or fears it and you don't want to use it. Well, you will never be effective enough in reaching people. You will reach a tiny, tiny little speck. And more likely than not, you will not reach anybody who is a main influencer, who is important enough to really reach others. You're not going to have people like that in your circles unless a miracle happens. And like I said, miracles are the exception to the rule. Don't count on them being the rule. So the reason that this work is not being done on a grand scale is because it's not because people don't know what needs to be taught. It's because they can't become modern teachers because modern teaching isn't done on a blackboard with fucking chalk. And most people are still naive enough to think that it is. It's not going to be done standing in front of a small group of people or trying to plant a seed with one resistant person. You put your ideas in a formulated, formal capacity that are well organized out to the public in a permanent form that is an archive of your thoughts and an archive of your research and your proposed solutions. Everything I've ever done is on my website. Even people in this movement who are doing the great work, you can't let your stuff be fly by night and not be archived. I see a lot of people, you go to their website and there's no archive of their work. Where is all of the interviews you've ever done? Where are all of the shows that you've done? I see a lot of people that are guilty of this and right in this movement who I feel whose work is great and it needs to be archived. It needs to be accessible when people go to their website. You need to bring it up almost immediately. I've archived everything I've done. We don't know how to use these technologies efficiently. That's why we're getting our asses kicked. So I have 1 hour left to go through the last part of the show, which is going to be a challenge. So I really don't want to extend this into another show. So I'm going to move a little bit faster in the last part. So 2 parts I have left. First is I want to give a little, an analogy, an allegory, pictorially, with a little animation, okay, with a slide animation here. And I think this is very effective, okay, in communicating how this really works. Try to follow the analogy here, okay? Picture a water tank, a tank of water that's a municipal water supply in a small town that has to be distributed to hundreds or thousands of people. So we're going to represent the distribution of the water in that tank, okay? By the tank is the centralized location of that water, right? And that represents somebody with a lot of knowledge. You're that water tank, okay? And here's who we have to get it out to. We got to fill everybody's cup. That represents all the souls out there with hardly any of this knowledge. They don't understand it for a second. Okay? They've never heard of it. They don't know what natural law is. They don't even know what moral relativism is. They're still drinking the Kool-Aid. They're still in the cult, and they have no essential knowledge of the occult, of natural law, of anarchy, of any of this. But if we fill their vessels with this knowledge, okay, represented by the water tank, filling these glasses, then we will have a society of informed individuals who can then become the water tanks themselves and move on to fill others. Okay, that's the goal. So you are this water tank, and these are other potential people who can take in all of the knowledge of natural law and the occult that you've come to understand. But let's look at it in a little bit of a different way. We're not really talking about water, we're talking about natural law. We have to fill people with the knowledge of natural law. So why do so few works in the modern world exist that teach natural law? Well, if you're the water tank with all that knowledge of natural law, And there's thousands of glasses that are unfilled around you, and you need to get that water to them. And the pathway for creating the flow of information between the water tank and the glasses does not exist, you will never be able to accomplish that task. What is that pathway? The pathway between the huge tank of knowledge representing the knowledge of natural law, the knowledge of true anarchy, the knowledge of the occult, that needs to get to all of those unfilled vessels, all of those ignorant unfilled vessels. The pathway between them is the understanding of how to use modern communications technology and modern publishing technology. You need to understand and implement the use of those technologies, and that is what will create the pathways. Now, I'm going to extend this little animation and explain how this works visually. Okay, so imagine there's hundreds of thousands of unfilled vessels, billions of them, in fact, which is the case, and we have only a few of these tanks that are filled with the knowledge of natural law, glowing with that knowledge, right? We have to take that and we have to distribute it to all of these ignorant vessels that are unfilled, okay? Well, again, we have to establish pathways and connections. And the connections represent being able to use these technologies efficiently in the digital space. You're watching this on the digital space. You're not watching it for your health, folks. The goal here is not to know this. The goal here is to spread this knowledge. That's why in Freemasonry there's 3 levels. It's taking in the knowledge that you need in the initiate stage, in the entered apprentice stage. The second phase is understanding what it means in your mind and in your heart. Yep. And then in the third phase, and what we've I'm just being told briefly that we've set up a third camera. We're going to try to bring in a third camera to show you an extended view of our studio, and there it is. Great job with our producer doing that on the fly. Okay, we've set up a third, motion cam. We're showing you here. Here's our setup in house. This is my bedroom, folks. This is my bedroom. This is what we have set up here in my bedroom. I'm doing this where I sleep. We set up this studio and break it down every Sunday. That's how committed we are to doing this work and getting it out there. This is a temporary studio that we resurrect each week. Okay? Because I don't have the money or space to rent a permanent studio, folks. There's my fucking shoes. Okay? And hats. Okay? Show them my bed. Show them my bed. This is where my bed is at while I'm doing the show, ladies and gentlemen. It's on the other side of the room, standing up against the wall. There's my producer, Mike. Okay? This is what we do every week. It's not magic. It isn't magic, folks. It's willpower and technical know-how. This is what you don't know how to do. These are the skills you don't have. These are the connections that need to be made. These are the pathways to these vessels. So I'm going to go back to, we're back to the slide, thank you. And let's show the first pathways. The first pathways is researchers have to make connections between each other. We have to have support networks and communication networks set up between us where we can talk to each other. And that's what this looks like. This is a distributed network between the researchers. We can't be constantly putting each other down or calling each other names or saying we're all shills because one doesn't agree with one thing one other person says. This doesn't look like this right now. This is totally broken and fragmented. We have no such support network in place because of ego issues. And we have to work on that. Even the people who claim to be enlightened and knowledgeable, we have to work on all of that. Spend your time doing the work, not attacking other researchers. Are we 8-year-old fucking children? Or are we adults who are trying to teach a pathway to freedom for humanity? Spend energy on your own work and putting it out there rather than attacking others. Okay? That's the bulk of what I do. Well, sometimes I'll attack the people that go on the attack because they think they're doing the work and they're not. It's a waste of your time and energy. Spend it on trying to communicate what's right and good and true and necessary for people to learn, and then encourage them to spread it. So once we have pathways like this, we can get the word out to other people because we're as strong as we can be. And then we'll get the word out to everybody. Some will reach others. Some, may reach others that others can't. But see, these green pathways, these are the first establishments. We're creating a core of our community and getting the real pipelines built that are like the totality of this knowledge, and getting other people up to speed, other potential teachers truly up to speed. Then once that's really strong and firm, we're going to get this knowledge out to even the lowliest of vessels, the average person. And yes, it is for all. It's not just for some. It is for all of them. It can be understood by all of them. Barring people with very severe mental, psychological, possibly, retardation issues, actual, syndromes. Obviously, some people like that are going to be affected. It's going to affect their ability to actually, physically, mechanically learn. We're talking about just people with, general healthy, overall mindsets that can receive information and understand something. And that's the majority of people. That is the rule rather than the exception. The exception is people who are actually incapable of learning because they have some syndrome or something that prevents actual learning. That's the very infinitesimally small percentage. This is for the vast majority, overwhelming majority. It's for almost all people, okay, who can comprehend it, who can who have the capacity for an understanding of the objective difference between right behavior and wrong behavior. So this is what the network needs to look like. But guess what? We are back at square one where there are no connections. Why? Or there are very, very few of them. Why? Those connections represent technical know-how. Those connections represent being able to use communications technology. Those connections represent being able to put the information out there into the world. Okay, so go back to the slides. There it is. Okay, this is where we're at. We are practically at this. You might be able to put one or two of those connections in there, and maybe it's true, but largely, here's where we are. There are a few people with a whole lot of the knowledge, many people with none of it. And we haven't built this first connection between the people with a lot of the knowledge, and we most certainly haven't built the smaller connections. And it is because these connections represent the technological know-how in communication and publishing. And we, as potential teachers, have not learned those skill sets. And that's what I attempted to explain to people in the Teaching Natural Law workshop. And I largely explained to them what skill sets would be required, what applications, knowledge in actual programs would be required, and kept it very general because obviously I can't teach those skill sets in a day. I couldn't teach them to you probably in 5 years. But I explained what you need to start learning. And I explained that the problem is you haven't started learning that, and showed it over and over again. So I hope you've understood that little allegorical treatment there, and I hope it has an impact on where we need to go. So I'm going to move into the third and final phase of this presentation, and that is social experiment results of 2019. That these are the calculated percentages after we did another social media with the public here in Philadelphia. That was part of the research for the natural law documentary. So this was part of what we did in doing man on the street interviews for the Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law documentary film that we are working on. And it is an admittedly I'll first state that it is an admittedly relatively small data set that we took from. And that is not the point, folks. The point is not how small a total figure of people that the data set was, because it was this time it was under 50 people. That's a small data set to work from. However, I would contend, and I feel that my contention would be absolutely backed up by more larger data sets, and I will challenge the viewing audience here today with the same challenge that I challenged everyone that I presented these conclusions, these results to at the Teaching Natural Law workshop. I will give you the same challenge today that I gave the attendees of my Teaching Natural Law workshop, and that is repeat this social experiment with as many people as you like in whatever city you like, or even do a cross-section of multiple cities with hundreds or thousands of people. It will not matter. The results will come back not statistically different, not statistically significantly different, I should say. And I'm talking about, when we're talking about this, we're not talking about 1 or 2 percentage points. You will not get a factor of like 10 to 20 percentage points difference. It will not sway things beyond what I am going to call in this presenting of our results, the magic number. Because the magic number to sway social dynamics such as these is, and I've said it many times and will continue to say it, because people have been brainwashed by New Age bullshit to believe that you only need to sway numbers like this 1 or 2%, and it's a crock of shit. The magic number is 51%. That is where you will start to see the beginnings of the tide turning. You won't see the result. You will see the beginnings of the tide turning. I will tell you, you will see in big ways social upheaval, change, and betterment toward the positive when we pass 75% of people thinking the correct way. That's when I will say you'll see a massive upheaval of social change. You will see hardly any until we hit 51% of change. No one else will tell you those numbers. You know how many people in this whole movement will tell you numbers like that? A big fucking goose egg. A big nothing burger. They'll all stick to this New Age bullshit aphorism that you only need to change 1 or 2% or 3% of the population. That's all you'd need to change. It's bullshit, folks. It's bullshit. Okay? We're a little off center with that, but I get the point. This may be the rage cam. We're going to call that the rage cam in the future. That's going to be when I really go off on a rant and get really, really angry. We'll call that we'll zoom in like that, and it will be the what on earth is happening rage cam. Okay? I like the idea. Okay? But anyway, back to the social experiment results. Admittedly small sample set. I challenge you to do it with a wider sample set. You will not get any statistically significantly different results. Prove me wrong. Go out and do it yourself with a wider number, a wider data set, and prove me wrong. I don't care what city, I don't care, it wouldn't matter where you do it, because people are all brainwashed in the same dark occult way. They are brainwashed into the same cult belief systems. So from now till the end of the show, I'm going to go through these social experiment results that were the result of our man on the street interviews as part of the Natural Law documentary data set. And this is my contention for where is humanity at in consciousness in late 2019. These results I'll disclose this experiment was performed in the spring of 2019. One season was performed in mid to late spring. One season, full season, has passed It will not be statistically different now had we done the same thing here in Philadelphia in late 2019. Okay, so let's go. 95% of our interviewees could not correctly define the word occult. And here's the pie chart. I did a few 3D pie charts for this. Hopefully they're going to transition real nicely between them. I tried to set that up in my keynote document here, my presentation document. And I'm showing you the split visually on a pie chart that represents 100% of interviewees. So what we're considering the brainwashed answers or incorrect answers are going to be in red, and what we consider answers we would have accepted as correct and representing truth are in green on these charts. So look at the result. And let me tell you something, folks. This is overwhelmingly beyond what I expected. I didn't expect to get 5%. It's still a terrible result. And I would say it's still probably somewhat representative of what we would get globally on any data set. But I'm almost even slightly impressed that 5% of the people we asked in Philadelphia here did understand that the word occult means hidden. Maybe they were occultists themselves. But 95% of people thought the occult meant evil, voodoo, Ouija boards, spiritual hokum, religion. You got a million different answers. Most were evil or bad or taboo. But only 5% out of everyone interviewed knew that the word occult meant hidden. So, extend this beyond the city of Philadelphia. Would you say that's probably the percentage you'd get worldwide? I'd almost be shocked if it were that good. I'd say we're probably less than 1% or 2% worldwide if people throughout the world knew that the word occult actually meant hidden. I'm going to tell you folks, and this is going to be a shock to some people, and some people will vehemently disagree with this. I'll get a lot of blowback for saying this, okay? I'm going to tell you right now that we received, in doing this in the city of Philadelphia, better results than we would get most other places in the world, because I believe and feel and have a pretty good understanding of the consciousness that even with the kind of brainwashing politically that is out there in the world, and particularly in America, even doing this here in Philadelphia, there is at least enough consciousness present here that we would get better results here in the city where I'm from than most other places in the world. So I would say if these results will be skewed, they will be skewed toward the negative if you pull it out further or do it in other places. Once again, prove me wrong. Do it yourself. And then bring the results to me. And if your results are very significantly different statistically, I'll admit that I was wrong and there are some other places with better consciousness. So let's move on to the next question. 95% of interviewees could not correctly define the term natural law. When we asked them, what do you think the term natural law means? We only got 5% of people that actually knew that this is the laws of the universe and it's like karma. They didn't give a super extended definition. They basically said these are God's laws or the laws of the universe. They give us the result of what we do, and it's similar to karma, what people traditionally think of as karma or karmic law. Only 5% of people could identify and define that as natural law. 95% either had wildly off-base answers or could not define it and said, I have no idea what that term means. This is where we're at in society, folks. And once again, I think that's a very skewed number toward the positive. If we extended this worldwide, if you got 1%, once again, I would practically shit my pants with joy in those who could actually define it. Okay? And I'm not saying that to discourage people. I'm saying that because what part of what I'm doing here is showing you what our work is. I am showing you where we're at in consciousness, and I'm showing you what our work is. Not my work, what our work as people who claim to understand this is to do. Okay? Moving forward. Okay, I see that transition looks good. 68% of interviewees believe that morality is a subjective human construct. Now, this is one of the most important results because this tells us why our society is the way that it is. And again, folks, people are like, I just want to just say before I even get into this, you see what I do here to try to make this hit home, right? I don't just slap whatever together. I try to make it somewhat aesthetic. I try to make it somewhat visually appealing. I try to make you understand what it is that this information represents. I learned the software enough to do some basic nice things with it, right? To make it really hit home in the mind so that you understand what it is I'm really saying and what it visually represents in humanity. This is part of what the great work is to do. You have to learn how to do things like this. It isn't that hard. It's not as hard as you think it is. I don't want to dissuade and discourage people. But this also doesn't happen magically. Again, I joke about, the presentation fairies don't arrive at my house on Saturday morning and go, Mark, we're going to make your Sunday presentation for you now. I give up my weekend to do this. I give up my time to do this work. My producers give up my time. My, assistants give up their time. We give up of our time freely to do this, to get it out there to people. That's what it takes. It's sacrifice. It takes a work ethic to do this. Okay? It's not by magic. It's not just the pressing of a button, and it's done. Or the presentation fairies arrive and go, hey, you need that presentation made? Well, we got it for you already prepared. It's a day or often days of work that I have to give up of other things I want to do. And by the way, that extended shot looks really cool. I didn't even tell my producer to do that today. He took the initiative, and when I saw him starting to set it up, I gave him the go-ahead to go ahead with it. Just let's see how it looks. That was on the fly. And that's made possible by the wonderful donation of the new camera that we received by a donor. Once again, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. So going back to the data, this is probably one of the most important results that we got as part of the entire data set. And folks, it's atrocious. You should be so appalled, you should practically be in tears at how atrocious this result is. This means that over 2/3 of people in our society are moral relativists. Over 2/3. The last time we did this was part of the natural law extended seminar that I gave in Philadelphia, and we were at about 66%, which is 2/3. Now we're beyond that. It has grown by almost 2 percentage points. 68% of our society is moral relativist. That's over 2 out of 3 people. And we want to know why we're enslaved? You need only look at this one slide, and this is 100% proof of the reason, the underlying causal factor for human enslavement right there. That's the answer. It's atrocious. This is horrifying. Only 32% said actual morality is objective. There's an objective difference between right behavior and wrong behavior that exists objectively in nature. 68% said morality is subjective. It is a human construct that human beings invent the difference between right behavior and wrong behavior, and we get to choose the difference between them. And we want to know why we're enslaved. My God. God help us, is all I have to say about that result. God help us. It's sickening. The next result. A full 32% of interviewees do not think human beings have free will, and this number is growing. The last time we did that, we got, I think it was like 80 to 90%, 80%. A full 1 in 3 people now believe there is no such thing as free will, folks. I mean, thankfully, luckily, we're in at least the 68th percentile here with how many people believe that we still do have free will. That's good, right? But think about the negative result here. 1 in 3 people now don't think humans have free will. This number is growing. The red part of this pie chart is growing. More and more people are now believing we don't have free will. Can you imagine this? But we're in so much trouble, folks. We're in so much trouble. This is part of why I do need to take the hiatus from the live show and really belt out this documentary and get it out there to the world. The world needs it. There's nobody else making a documentary on natural law. I will almost certainly be the first. I need to focus on that work and get it done. Because the situation is bad. And if you can't see that, as people who say you want to put this knowledge out to other people, you need to help. You need to get involved and help. I'm begging you. I am not so proud that I am beyond begging for help. Okay? I am begging for your assistance in the great work. You need to learn the technology to do it. So, consider that result. It's atrocious. Next. 0% of interviewees could correctly define what a right is. No one who was asked. 100% of people asked could not correctly define the definition of a right. No one who was asked could give back to us a right is a behavior that does not cause harm to others. No one. 0. And if you don't understand that that is the exact reason that we are losing our rights, once again, I don't know what to tell you. You don't understand what's taking place in our midst. You don't understand the crux and causal factor of the problem. And again, if you're not producing media that shows this and that helps to make this better, you're not doing the great work. You may think you are, but you are not. Again, sickening to the pit of my stomach, but not unexpected. Next result. 79% of interviewees believe that rights come from human beings. This is, even more than moral relativism, than they're subjective. 21% said rights come from God or nature. That's like, 2 out of 10. 2 out of 10. So really 80% believe that they're subjective. Because if they come from human beings, they're based on human perception and opinion. They can't come from nature if human beings get to determine what they are. So this is actually a better statistically correct result of are rights subjective. 8 out of 10 people. Just think about that number. 8 out of 10 people think that humans are the arbiters of rights. 8 out of 10 think that we make what rights are, and therefore they think we can revoke rights. We can endow them to others. We can grant them to other people, delegate them, and if necessary, revoke them from others because they come from us. Imagine this. And I would tell you that number is very significant in the anarchist community, in the freedom movement as well. I would hope it diverges somewhat from that, but I wouldn't really put my hopes up on it, Because every time I put my hopes in people, I'm always let down by where we're at. And I'm really not afraid to show that it affects me. I'm also not afraid to ask for help. I'm not, I'm okay with saying I've done this for a long time now, and I'm under stress as a result of not having enough help doing it. I need you to step forward and start teaching this stuff. The reason we're still here at this place, the reason that, we still have this going on here is because not enough people are teaching natural law. So let's move on to the next slide. 53% of interviewees believe some human beings have rights that others do not. So we were closer to a half and half split on this, but you'll notice, as with all of these slides, okay, with the exception of only a couple, you will notice that we are in the complete red and in the wrong side of thinking with well over 51%, the magic number. You will notice this. Please take note of this. Things will not start to change in any way until we move past 51% in green of being the correct answer, okay? With all of these experiment questions. You won't even start the process, let alone get to a point where it's truly tipping and really all of society is embracing it, until you hit around 75%, 3/4. But that 51%, the point where it breaks half and half, is the magic number. That is why it is the magic number of the occult. May 1st, 5/1, Area 51, May Day, critical point. It's their highest occult holiday of the year, and it's not by accident that they chose 5/1. They know that's also the tipping point. But 53% still believe some human beings have rights that others don't. Only 47% said, yes, all human beings have the same rights as every other human being, and no one has special rights that we can grant to them that others don't have. But 53% still said, yes, some human beings have rights that others don't, that are granted to them by other human beings. Could you believe this? So we're still in the significant red on that. 74% of interviewees believe governmental authority exists inherently in nature. Think about that. It's like the same breakdown in the wrong way that believe rights come from human beings versus come from nature. 74% believe authority is inherent to nature. And only 26%, or about a quarter, 1 in 4, believe that authority is a human belief. That is a constructural idea of human beings. It's the exact opposite of the way it should be. Think about this for a moment, though, folks. I really want you to consider what this means. This means 3 out of 4 people believe government is totally natural and exists from the natural world, stems from the natural world, and is not a human constructural idea that humanity believes exists. They believe it's an actual natural thing in nature, in the cosmos. They believe authority is something that actually exists in the natural world, in the cosmos. The level of religious brainwashing is so off the charts. How much people are a fucking cult, are cult members. It's insane. Only 1 in 4 people believe that there is a belief in authority, and that's all it is. We want people to abandon the belief in authority. 3 out of 4 people fucking believe that it exists in nature, and it's not even a belief. This is where we're at in consciousness in late 2019, folks. Do you see how much you have failed in what your work is to do? You have failed. I have not. Look, long term, okay, one person, if you want to put all of this on one person, can I change the totality of human beings' consciousness? More likely than not, no. No one individual is powerful enough. So, but have I done my portion of the work? I haven't failed in my obligation to the work. You have. Once again, if I'm talking to a person who has actually done it and really contributed their portion of the work, please disregard. I'm not speaking to you. But I'm probably speaking to 98% of my viewing audience. You have failed in your duty and responsibility. And that is why this is still the statistic of what people think. Take a good long look at these slides, ladies and gentlemen. Take a good long look at them and know what they mean. Understand deeply in your mind and your heart what they mean. Next, 69% of interviewees believe that governmental authority is morally legitimate. So we're at a 7-3 breakdown here. 7 out of 10 believe government authority is perfectly morally legitimate. And only about 3 out of 10, and you would say, oh, that's great. It's over 30% of people who would claim that they're like anarchists, that think, authority isn't really morally legitimate. I can't believe how much this differs psychologically and is cognitive dissonance. Almost 8 out of 10 said they believe it exists in nature. Well, what is nature immoral? We have a 10% discrepancy there because people are under a lot of cognitive dissonance and one belief contradicts another and yet they hold them simultaneously. So 7 out of 10 people believe government authority is perfectly morally legitimate and there's no moral issue with it, meaning that it is right for government to rule over other people arbitrarily with their arbitrarily defined sets of laws that are based on moral relativism and the belief of human beings. And only about 3 out of 10 said, no, government authority is a claim and it is an immoral claim. That it doesn't really have any moral legitimacy to it. The next result. 64% of interviewees believe government is necessary to prevent chaos. So we're back at an almost 2/3 to 1/3 ratio. 2 out of every 3 human beings believe that without government, there would be chaos in society. And this is growing again. This is a figure that is growing since the last time we did these social experiments. So more people are brainwashed to believe that without the control system of slavery in place, that there would just be human chaos. And they don't understand that with a society of slavery in place, we have human chaos. They don't think slavery is chaos. You have imbeciles going on interviews trying to tell people, in the Hong Kong protests that, why are you so concerned with freedom? Safety is more important than freedom. No, imbecile, it is not. Freedom is and always will be more important than physical safety. You're a coward and a know-nothing. That's what people who think like that are, who think that it's more important to be safe, no matter how much control or rights you have to, control you need to be under or rights you need to give up, rather than be free and potentially be in a very life-threatening, dangerous situation. You're just fucking wrong, dumbass. That's my response to anyone who thinks that way. You're factually incorrect, and more importantly, you're fucking morally wrong. Because you are one of the imbeciles that would be willing to sacrifice other people's freedoms just so you feel safe, even though you'd be enslaving everyone as a result. Slavery never creates freedom. It creates chaos. And that's what you have now. Okay? So folks, almost 2/3, about 2 out of 3 people think we have to have slavery in order to prevent chaos. And only about 1/3 think, have enough faith in humanity to say there shouldn't be rulers. Even if we didn't have rulers, we would end up being okay. See, the people who think the other way think, oh, people are bad, and if, we didn't have government, there'd be chaos. Well, how could you appoint bad people? The government is comprised of people who you're saying are bad and will create chaos. Well, how won't the appointed government create chaos? And the answer is, not only will they have. That's why none are fit to rule. Humanity is no group of angels. Believe me, we are not angelic beings, folks. We are not godlike beings by any stretch of anybody's imagination, least of all myself. That is why no one is fit to rule anyone else. That's why no form of government is legitimate. And it's a mistake to implement any of it. So, we're still at a 2/3, 1/3 breakdown toward the wrong there. 78% of interviewees believe taxation by government is morally legitimate. We go even more into the deep red, with almost 8 out of 10 saying, yes, it's perfectly moral for government to institute taxation because I want that stolen money used for things I want it used for. As long as it's stolen and put to work in the name of the things I want it put toward, then it's perfectly moral. And the people who think that, you're immoral bags of shit. That's what you are. You're immoral bags of shit. And you would say we're going to talk about another statistic. You'd claim you're moral. And you're lying sacks of shit on top of being immoral sacks of shit. And this is where we give people too much of a wide berth, man. We give them too much of a berth and we want to say, oh, they're just good. They're good people. They're just mistaken or they're just misled. No, they're bad people. I need to do a whole presentation like Streetwise Spirituality of what is the actual point-by-point characteristics of the definition of being awake. I really need to do a whole presentation at some point in the future called What Does It Mean to Actually Be a Good Person? Because we throw this term around way too flippantly. We throw it around willy-nilly like, oh, he's a good person, but he just is mistaken on this. No, it's not. It doesn't mean you're a good person. Wrong. Incorrect. There are a lot more characteristics that it means to be a good person. And that is knowing the difference between right and wrong behavior. And willfully choosing the right over the wrong, which is the true exercise of conscience. Conscience is the knowledge that has to come first. And then the willful choice of the good over the bad is a free will decision that comes next, that implements it into the physical domain. People who think this way aren't morally good people that are just misled. They're bad people who have yet to abandon their wrong and bad thoughts and become good people by abandoning those bad thoughts and choosing correct knowledge and then implementing it. That's what makes you a good person. You can go from being a bad person to being a good person in a human lifetime, but while you think and behave a certain way and condone certain things, that is the definition of being a bad person. Actively. And too few understand that. But think about what this means, folks. Think about what this actual statistical result means here. 8 out of 10 people believe that robbery is perfectly acceptable as long as a perceived authority figure does the robbery. And as long as they have, quote, representatives who use those stolen resources, which amounts to actual slavery, taking any portion of the result of someone else's labor that they do with their own body. So it's really a claim of ownership upon the body of someone else, which is slavery. As long as their, quote, representatives do what they say they are going to do and that they condone being done with that money, then it's perfectly moral. So a wrong can be turned into a right as long as you use the stolen goods or resources, what you say you're going to use it for, that they want. And you think that those are just good people who are misled? That's a huge part of the definition of what it means to be a bad person. So that's a better statistically significant result of how many people are actually morally good people. I'd say it's far less than that. But I'd start maybe at a number of around 8 out of 10 are bad people. I really wouldn't even give you that. I'd say it's closer to 9 out of 10. Next result. 78% of interviewees believe taxation is necessary for society to function. The same result that said that it was moral, said that they believe it is necessary. And around 22%, or about 2 out of 10, said our society could function without stolen labor, the stolen product of other people's labor. Only 2 out of 10 think everything that we do in society we could continue and survive and thrive as a society without robbing people. 8 out of 10 basically believe, no, the robbery of people and the continued theft of the fruits of their labor must continue for society to function at all. This is how brainwashed the population is. And again, these numbers are getting worse and worse, folks. They're not going in the direction where the correct answer, is getting larger as time goes on. They're going in the opposite direction. The correct answers are disappearing. They're getting smaller and smaller. The pie chart, the green section, is getting smaller as time goes on. "63% of interviewees believe drug laws are morally legitimate and necessary. Both perfectly moral and necessary." Imagine, 63% of slaves believe that the owners of themselves as slaves have the perfect moral right to continue to make the claim of ownership upon the body of themselves as slaves by commanding what may or may not be put into the body of said slaves. Final report at 11. Can you believe it? Almost 2/3 of human beings, 2 out of 3 human beings, say my body belongs to someone else. Someone else may determine what I may put into my own physical vessel, my body, that my consciousness inhabits. 2/3 of people physically identify with their slave owner's right to turn them into a slave. They believe that they have the moral right to do that. This is how bad things are. And 37%, very slightly more than 1 in 3, say drug laws are immoral and unnecessary. That someone has the right to put in their body that which they choose because they own their body. And you know what? I'd say out of that 63%, how many people there would you say are feminists who believe in abortion? I'd say a good chunk of them. If you said, are you a feminist? Yes. If you say, do you believe abortion is a right? They'd say absolutely, because women have the right to do what they want with their own body. Yet they would say other people have a right to say what I can and can't put into my own body. That's the cognitive dissonance. And I don't think abortion is a right because it's harming another being. It's not the same being. It's a different being. And I've shown what the result of abortion is. It's doing something that is a life that you are in the charge of, that you are the steward of. It doesn't mean you can do whatever you want to your own children if it means harming them. So, but that's for another time. We don't have the time to get into that. We have 7 minutes left, so I really have to race through these. Less than that, really. So let's move on to the next slide. 71% of interviewees believe driver's licenses are morally legitimate and necessary. So again, we have a 7-3 breakdown. 7 out of 10 say our controllers should have to license our travel, and we do not have the actual right to travel in a car, a boat, or anything else. And though their argument invariably when we asked them was there'd be chaos without this piece of paper. People would drive like maniacs. Well, people don't drive like maniacs now. You know? Like the paper actually proves you won't get out on the road and do something that is both destructive to others and or self-destructive. The piece of paper proves nothing. It proves you knew how to jump through a hoop to some person that says you must have this or we'll lock you up if you don't. That's all the piece of paper proves. That's not saying anything about what your subsequent behavior will be. You think just because people have a license, that means that they will drive in a perfectly not honorable but trustworthy way on the road, or a responsible way, that magical document somehow imparts responsible behavior? Does the ability to drink impart responsible behavior? Does a license to go and buy a firearm impart responsible behavior with the firearm? Does any licensure impart responsible behavior? No, it does not. You're talking about two separate things. You're talking about licensure versus responsibility through action, which are two separate things. So it doesn't make sense on its face, and it still shows that 7 out of 10 people believe that human beings don't actually have the right inherently to travel in nature. They think we need to beg permission of a government for that. This was only one of the slightly encouraging results, which is over the 51% magic number in the right. We asked people if people have a moral obligation to obey unjust laws, meaning if a law commands something that is either wrong or prevents something that you can do that doesn't cause harm, are you still morally obligated to follow it unless you could somehow get it changed? And 43%, which is still a horrifying number, said you still have a moral duty to obey it unless you could get it changed through a legal process. And 57% said no such duty exists to obey what are considered unjust or immoral laws. So that was a somewhat encouraging result. But again, it doesn't jibe with all of the results that they gave about government being moral. Okay? So I'm going to try to finish these and move quickly forward. So again, just over that magic number, 51%, okay? 52% said following orders is not a virtuous human trait. 48% of interviewees believe following orders is a virtuous human trait. And, you know, I would say we're right around that 50 percentile mark. So it's not going to swing significantly in either direction. But it's horrifying that about 50% of people think following orders is a virtue. And only about 50% think it's not a virtue. 64% believe an order giver is more culpable than an order follower. 100% wrong. So that's almost 2/3. 2 out of 3, again, you see this number come up over and over. About 2/3 are in the wrong. They think an order giver is more responsible for the resultant harm than someone who actually performed the harmful behavior through their actual actions. The order follower. 74% of interviewees do not think firearms ownership is a human right. I think maybe one of the only places you'll get a statistically different result of that is Texas. 3 out of 4 don't believe it's a natural right to own a firearm. And that's getting worse and worse. Only 1 in 4 think that that is a natural right. And here's the big one, folks. All people we asked think that they are a moral individual. Everyone we asked, with all the things that they concluded, that they said that were completely immoral and backing of the authority of government, they actually believe that they are still a good person. That's all the time we have, folks. Please go to gifts on the website, gifts.whatonearthishappening.com. Please continue to get the ARC drive for yourself and copy it for others. You can get that on the ARC tab You will not be disappointed. Please, we need donations, especially for the documentary to be completed. Go up to whatonearthishappening.com/donate and make a donation if it is within your ability to do so. That's all the time we have for this edition of What on Earth is Happening. We'll see you in early 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, government is slavery. Thank you for watching.